Do you hear a constant howling noise when you drive along with your van? Does your tire sound like this when you turn it by hand? If yes, this is the video you will need to fix that. So first of all, you will safely jack up your car and then you will remove the tire. After this, you will locate the two pins that hold the brake pads on and you will use a punch to punch them out. Then you can just grab them with a few pliers or push one of them down, basically push the spring down with a hammer, and this will allow you to remove the one pin and then the other, because it will decompress the spring and there won't be any tension on them anymore. Now you will wiggle out the brake pads. You can also compress the pistons with a special tool or a screwdriver. Just note that using the screwdriver will damage the brake pads, and I would only use this technique if you need new brake pads. In my case, I just wiggled them out because it was easier for me, and the brake disc wasn't that worn, so the lip wasn't high, which would cause the brake pads to get stuck there. Note to get out the metal backing plate and also check the prongs. If they're flat with the metal, you need to bend them out because they're the ones that keep the piston from turning. Now we are going to remove the caliper bolts. They're usually quite tight. I broke mine loose, and so you can see that it didn't need much force to remove them, but usually it takes more of a fight because they're tightened down with 160 Newton meters. Now we're going to remove the circle lip that holds the speedo cable on there. Just take a very small screwdriver or pick and pry it out. It's very easy to do. Now it's a good time to turn the disc manually for one more time to make sure that the noise is actually coming from the wheel bearing. So the next thing you will do is take a screwdriver or a pry bar and remove the cap, the speedometer cap. You just tap it, turn it by approximately 180 degrees and tap it again, and you repeat this until the cap comes off. So here it goes. You can clearly see that the grease turned into wax because it's, I think, 25 years old or maybe even older, I don't know. It was pretty filthy, and no wonder that the bearing decided to destroy itself. So now the next thing we will do is take a screwdriver, something like this, and unpin the nut because it's pushed in to keep it from loosening up. After that, you will take a 26mm nut or wrench or whatever, and then you will turn it loose. So now you will take the washer off. Just be careful because you don't want to lose it. You can discard the nut if you want because it's useless by now. You can't reuse it. And then you're going to grab the rotor and pull it off. Now you can listen to the bearing. After that, you see the two recesses that are inside the rotor. You will put your screwdriver or brass rod inside of them, and then you will hit it with a big hammer in order to get the races out. You hit it once from the one side and then you switch to the other side. You do it until the race comes out. So here you can see them again, the notches you have to hit. You repeat exactly the same procedure of the other side, of course. First of all, you can have them on the ground and later on you will put it in a vise, so it's easier to get the rest of it out. You use the exact same technique, one from the one side and the other time you hit it from the other side. So 180 degrees apart. You repeat it until it comes out. It will take a little bit of time, but it's very easy. Then discard it. Now you can take a look at the bearing. So now we are going to pack the bearings. Just put a little bit of grease on your hand and then you just pack them by using the motion. After that, we will install the bearings. Basically the bearing races first of all. It's really easy to install them. What you do is you take them and you put them just into this recess that's inside your brake disc. You can take a look at the bearing so you know how it goes in. So you can clearly see that it goes in like that, so that it allows you to put the bearing in afterwards. Then you're going to take your hand, push it in like that, and then you will drive the rest in with your hammer. Hit it from side to side until it fully seats. Then take a nut and push the rest of it in. Note that it's hardened steel, so you can't damage it that easy. You can also use a special wheel bearing installation tool, but it's unnecessary. So now put the nut like this, and then you hit it with a hammer. You don't need a lot of force, you barely tap it. You can see that it's now seated properly. And then we're going to move to the other side. On the other side, we do the exact same procedure. First of all, tap it in with a hammer, and then you use a socket, for example, to drive the rest in. A brass rod could also work, or a metal rod. But I think that the socket is the best option, as it applies the force more evenly. Now we're going to add grease inside the brake disc cavities, which is between the two bearing races. It's quite an easy procedure. I would suggest you to use plenty of grease because you can't really use so much. And even if you would use too much, it would just squirt out. In my opinion, it's better to use a little bit more that will squirt out than not using enough. So now we put the inner wheel bearing in. And after this, we are going to install the rubber seal, which basically looks like a rear main seal. This is the most difficult part in my opinion, as it requires a lot of patience because sometimes you pop the one side in and the other comes out again. But if you try enough, it will eventually go in at some point. So grease it, and then you're just going to put it inside the cavity of the wheel bearing, and then just tap it in like you did with the bearing races. For that you can use a normal hammer, or what would be even better is a plastic hammer. But in my occasion it was fine to use the normal hammer. So now it's installed, and we're going to put the other bearing in, the outer bearing one. So put a little bit of grease up there so it doesn't run dry in there, and then you just add the washer and you're ready to install it. So now we are going to inspect the spindle, clean it up, and then we can use some grease in order to grease the spindle up too. You can't really use too much grease, so go ahead and grease it up. Then what you're going to do is take your brake disc and push it on, and also kinda turn it at the same time. And you also have to press the wheel bearing and the washer down with your thumb at the same time so that it won't pop out. Because if it falls on the ground, it will be contaminated with dirt, and then you will have to clean it and re-grease it. So what we are going to do now is put in a little bit of grease inside the grease cap and install the nut. You're going to use a new nut because it's peened, the old one is peened, and it can't be reused. Now you have to torque it down. How you do it is the following. There is no torque spec, you just tighten it down and turn the disc at the same time so it seats properly. And what you want to do is check for the washer to be able to barely move from side to side, so from left to right, but you won't be able to push it in. You just can slide it from side to side, and if you do this, it will be properly installed. After doing this, you will find the two recesses inside the spindle, and you will peen the nut at this point or at this location in order for it not to come loose. You just take a screwdriver or a chisel and a 1 kilogram hammer or whatever you have by your hand. It can also be a smaller one, but you will need to hit it more times. After hitting it, you're ready to install the grease cap. You do it by, first of all, installing it. Then what you do is basically pull the speedometer cable so it comes out from the spindle a little bit more. Then what you're going to do is make it go through the grease cap, and then you're going to hammer it down. You won't do it before that, because you may bend the grease cap a little by hammering down on it, and then you won't be able to get the speedometer cable through. You just barely tap it on, you don't need a lot of force in order to get it on. Then you install the circlip. so that it won't come loose. It's very important not to forget it, because it wouldn't be nice if it comes loose and then you won't have any speedometer indication or speed indication. Now you can hear how it sounds. After this, you will be ready to install your brake caliper back on. So now what you're going to do is remove the plug you put or you didn't put inside your caliper in order to keep the dust out of it. And compress the pistons. You do it by taking a wrench or a brake caliper piston compressor or whatever you like. In my case I took a wrench because it's easier. You just push it in so that the new brake pads will go in easier. Or the old ones. Whatever you use depends on their condition. Here you can see the notch. You have to clean it because it's there to cool it a little bit down, and it also acts as a wear indicator because it allows you to see how much material you've left. The best way to check it though is with a caliper. Then we are going to bend the prongs out because sometimes they get bent in when the mechanic installs it improperly. You want the noses to face towards the piston so that they won't allow them to turn. Now take some copper grease and grease up the backing plate of the caliper and basically all the contact areas which touch another object or the caliper. For example, now I grease the part that touches the piston. Now I do the back, and then you will do the sides and the contacting areas which touch the brake pads. After this, you're going to properly install the backing plates and brake pads. You will do this by first of all installing the one pin properly and fully seating it. Then what you will do is install the spring, push it down with another object and insert the second pin. Then you will drive the second pin in, and after driving the second pin in, you will be actually ready to install your caliper. You do it by the following way. First of all, you put it on, then you tighten the bolts down. Be careful to install the correct bolts in the correct location because there are two different bolts. Then install the brake line. Bleed the brake system because it's very important. Then press the brake pedal for a few times until it gets hard because the pistons have to move out to adjust. And after doing this, you're actually ready to take your van for a drive. So, if you like this video, like, share, subscribe, and if you have any question, you can feel free to make it on the comment section. One thing I would like to add is that you would need to tighten the brake caliper down to 160 Newton meters. And one thing I would like to add is that I'm sorry for the camera quality, but this is our remastered version, which means that I cut it properly in order to make it shorter. The videos in the future will have a way better camera and video quality. So anyways, thank you, I wish you a nice day and have fun with your van. Bye.